We shouldn't lock up animals. Who are we to think we own them? They're not trading cards, but alive. Today we will talk about some common misconceptions and conspiracies with zoos and aquariums. These facilities are not a place of misery, but rather a place of hope. They're a site of rescue, rehabilitation, and a haven for species that wouldn't survive on their own. I will trudge through the role of captivities, captive breeding, and the personhood of animals. Although there are ways to grow this infrastructure and build a better system, we do need their support and not the neglect of the general public. First, we will discuss the role of captivity. One of the largest concerns among the animal rights activists on zoos and aquariums is that these animals are being held against their will. But what is captivity? Captivity is the state of confinement and the lack of freedom. In a series of interviews done by Chris Staup and Nikiforu in 2021, tourists believed that captivity is inhumane, unnecessary, and actually shameful. However, the general public does not even recognize or acknowledge that these institutions are put in place for endangered species and rehabilitated species. Without captivity or the use of captivity on these endangered species, they would die. They would have no place to turn. This becomes a safe haven for these animals, in addition to an opportunity to study, learn about disease spread among the species, and also conservation biology within the species. While there are plenty of chances for better development of exhibits, enclosures, and aquariums, we also could grow in the mental stimulation of these animals and help them with enrichment tools and all kinds of daily social events with them, so that way they can grow in the mental essentials rather than just the food and water and all of those things as well. Next, we will discuss how captive breeding has been taken severely out of context. And the next big concern of animal rights activists on captive breeding is being performed within zoos, or how it's being performed within zoos and aquariums. Captive breeding is a breeding of individuals that are in captivity. Many concerns with the purpose and how these individuals are being traded among zoos. But according to Clay and others in 2022, captive breeding is a way to maintain genetic variety without actually harming the well-being of the individual themselves. So it's actually a critical way to maintain genetic variability, especially within a small population. Think of it as relatives. These animals are related to one another. You want to have a nice genetic mix-up rather than breeding them with their cousins. So, in fact, switching them with other zoos allows them the opportunity to grow and expand their genetic gene pool and not be at risk of genetic inbreeding. And it also allows them to follow their natural mating cycles and that natural biological feeling that they have. Therefore, zoos and aquariums must keep at least 90% of wild species genetic diversity within all maintained species that they have. Although this captive breeding is questionable, has very questionable implications to tourists, it actually allows these organisms to follow their natural processes and also reduce the risk of inbreeding depression. Now we will talk about animal personhood. It's an essential debate among many people, as well as animal rights activists, on whether animals have personhood and they have feelings and emotions. In a powerful video by Hugh Duss and Pinbaker in 2014, it was discussed how in one heartbeat, 160 animals were killed. So regardless of how much energy this person wasted on trying to save animals, in all of his life, he might just save one heartbeat's worth. This video also follows along the story of a chimpanzee who was rescued by a zoo from a circus. And the biggest issue was that he was lonely and he was depressed due to the limited resources of this zoo, who was very poorly funded. But then it becomes a gray area. The chimp shouldn't be killed just because there's no resources or it's depressed. It shouldn't and can't go back into the wild but it also can't stay in this zoo. So what do we do about it? We must consider the rights of the animal's mental well-being in addition to the basic needs it has. Many emotions and feelings of these animals are thrown out the window the moment they step into captivity, and they are neglected through social and stimulating atmospheres and are nearly completely impossible due to the funding from these zoos. They have no money to do it. This is a fundamental reason why zoos and aquariums should be supported and should have funding from the general public, because these organisms deserve their best chance in these zoos, in these aquariums. However, there's no denying that there is room for improvement. An interviewee claimed that many zoos' living conditions are not even suitable for the complexity of these organisms, and it in fact dooms them to mental or physical exhaustion and negative psychological effects. But this can all be fixed. This can, or at least bettered, by expanding these exhibits and enclosures and aquarium, and also trying to mimic their natural habitat and giving them some mental stimulus daily. To do this, companies should also guarantee that the money that is being earned should be put back into the animals. This accountability system would not only gain trust with the public and gain more supporters, but it would also promote the lives of the animals, which is what everyone wanted to begin with. Additionally, work by Maynard in 2016 revealed that of the 26 articles she reviewed, it was analyzed that 11% of them were completely negative in dissing zoos and aquariums. So with the added use of good media and positive media, we can educate the general public, and we can teach them the right ways and teach them not the harsh reality of zoos and aquariums. So let's review. We discussed some misconceptions with the controversial topics of zoos and aquariums, and how captivity is actually essential in the aid of rehab and rescued and endangered species, how captive breeding allows for genetic variability and the reduction of inbreeding depression, how animals do have personhood but lack the support from the general public and are letting them rot instead of thrive. So we must all come together and redesign enclosures to mimic their natural habitat, and also work together to give them that stimulus that they need, and also boost that public and that good media image. Thank you so much. I know that was terrible.